Let's Talk Supply Chain. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Let's Talk Supply Chain. So before we get started, I have a question for you because we want you to wait until the end for the answer. So here's a brain teaser just to get you thinking. Today's guest has a heavy focus on improving intermodal, a notoriously complex and fragmented industry. So in the US alone, how many container moves happen each and every year? It's got to be in the millions, right? Don't tell us the answer. It's got to be in the millions, though? At least?
Oh, yeah.
All right, well, stay tuned because we're going to let you know the answer after we get through our interview. Now, Alan, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks. It's great to be here. Always.
Yeah, we are live at Manifest 2025 in the Lynxis booth, and I'm so excited to have you back on the show. We've been talking to not only you and Larry, but also some of the other companies that you're working with as well. You can go and check out some of those episodes at letstalksupplychain.com. But today we're going to be talking about some industry trends. We're going to be talking a little bit more about what you're doing, what people should be thinking about. But before we do that, why don't you let everybody know who you are, what you do, and a little bit about Lynxis.
I'm Alan Thomas. I'm Chief Commercial Officer for Lynxis. We are a cradle-to-grave technology solutions company that serves owners and operators of container terminals anywhere through the supply chain, any node, from marine terminals to rail terminals, and then inland, like you're seeing here at Manifest, to the DCs, the depots, and then all the way back throughout the supply chain.
Awesome. Now, we're here at Manifest. Give us a bit of the inside scoop of some of the conversations that you've been having. Like, what are some of the big trends that are coming out of the show? What's got you thinking? And talk to us about that.
Yeah, this is a massive show, as you've probably documented the last few days. You know, this is primarily focused, different for us and newer markets for us on the inland space.
Yeah.
A lot of software companies looking to optimize that last mile and parcel delivery space. But we've heard a lot about AI. We've heard a lot about security and the cyber game.
Yes.
Not as much on how to make the terminal operations themselves more efficient. This is more about the orchestration outside of those fence lines.
Yeah.
But still really interesting stuff.
Yeah, lots about AI. I mean, on my show just a little while ago, I talked about how in 2025, AI agents is going to be the thing to watch.
Yeah, it's the new Chipotle, the new buzzword, or the new blockchain from 10 years ago. There's a lot of hype, but there's also a lot of hope, and there's a lot of people that we've talked to who are really getting a lot of value out of it.
Yeah, and I think it's also about the innovation and taking the risk, trying different things.
Yeah.
We're not necessarily getting it all right today, but that doesn't mean we're not going to get it right tomorrow, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months from now, right?
Yep. Yeah. You got to try. You got to take some risks.
So now you're in the intermodal space, right? What kind of problems are you seeing in the industry right now? And let's face it, like intermodal really is the gateway into North America for us to get our goods. It's a very important part of supply chain.
Still visibility is key. Bad inventory inside of the fence line, inside of the yards is still a big problem. That trickles up here to Manifest to where's my cargo and why is the information, where's my stuff? Why is the information I'm seeing on your screen different from what the rail carrier says or the dray carrier says?
Yeah.
So visibility is still, key because there's so much complexity when all of this data comes together. We're not certain who's right and who's wrong, right? There's not one system of record as this cargo moves inland and then back through the flow. So visibility is key.
I have a question about visibility before you go on.
Yeah.
Why are we still talking about visibility in 2025?
I think a lot of the technology projects that we've seen, really over the last 10, 15 years, they've been focused on kind of an insular basis, intra-company process improvement versus how do we make this entire supply chain more efficient and more effective for the shippers and then the carriers that move it. Yeah. So there's not a partner model where I can benefit and you can benefit and we can all make money. We're trying to take costs out of our own internal operations,
Yeah.
but we're not really looking at the big picture on what adds value to the shippers and making it more seamless. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of stovepipes, as they say, a lot of process improvement, but it's kind of contained inside of a company.
So it's a little bit siloed, and we're not
Exactly.
we're not at the point where we're sharing the data that needs to be shared
Yeah.
to sort of move that innovation forward.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Are there any other challenges that you're seeing for clients? Or
I mean, I think if you take the visibility inside the yard one step further, better orchestration of the cargo coming at the facilities. So
Okay.
in transit, if shipments are going to be delayed, if we've got geopolitical issues, labor strikes, weather, how would I reroute that cargo?
Yeah.
How can I better get an appointment time updated for my carrier who's going to arrive based off the ELD that's inside of his cab?
Right.
That's some of the data that's kind of locked away in those silos that I think could better orchestrate the projected arrival
Yeah.
of the cargo, and then you can plan things inside of that facility much better.
Well, and you want it automated as well, right? These are the things that we continue to do or not do that are still manual.
Yeah. You process automation, yes. Robotic automation in most of Intermodal, it's only for the big facilities.
Okay.
We're really founded to democratize those same kind of technical components that would bring process automation to a dirt lot that's going
Right.
to serve as a depot. How do I make the gate more efficient, security more efficient, make sure cyber is covered, make sure the infrastructure is there to support the technology, but it always comes back to people. It's ridiculous to think you're going to outsource or eliminate roles. We're just going to change the roles, much like a mechanic now works on a car. Hundreds of years ago, we're riding horses and we're taking care of horses. We have different jobs now, but the exception management from the new problems we're going to see when we implement technology still going to be there, still going to drive operations.
So from what you're building now at Lynxis, talk to us about how that's going to solve those problems that we just spoke about. I mean, one is visibility, and I asked you, why are we still talking about this in 2025?
Yeah, so again, we're about, really as a custodian of technology for our customers, and that's the owners and operators of the cargo facilities. So it's not just about selling a system, it's about selling the whole solution needed to make it work, to get the project implemented, add some value, but do it really quickly so that the customers and their end customers can realize that value. We like the time to value versus just a typical ROI that ends at the end of a project. We like the time to value that you can show to your end customers so that if you're a depot operator or a rail line, you can keep those customers sticky with better visibility. We add not just the tech, we add the infrastructure to support it. So if we would put in, say, an automated gate system, we have solar to drive the equipment versus relying on a grid connection. We have wireless communication, so we don't have to bog down their network. We have the people to install it, monitor it, maintain it, and that all comes together as a total solution versus, just selling the tech and walking away.
Yeah, because that's what we need, right? We need better implementation.
Yeah.
We need better change management so that you can put it in and people can start working right away.
Exactly.
That's what everybody wants.
Fast time to value.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the buzzwords. We kind of touched on some of them a little bit earlier, but we're hearing a lot of buzzwords in the industry that I just want to talk about in intermodal specifically in your area to just get a clearer picture on what exactly these buzzwords mean.
Okay.
So the first one is AI, which we kind of talked about. Talk to us about where you're seeing good use cases for AI in intermodal and where maybe we might be going off the rails.
Yeah.
Pardon the pun.
Yeah.
With that, big shiny object.
Yeah, again, a lot of hype, but also some real hope. The hype is, I think, is kind of misinformation with this. Everybody wanting to use the AI buzzword when what they're doing is not really AI.
Okay,
we've been since the late 1900s, as my kids say, the late 1900s when dinosaurs roamed the earth.
Late 1900s.
Yeah, 1990s. 1990s, sorry. We started to see the onset of real adoption of early AI, and that was, more in machine learning.
Okay.
How can we scan in a document and read the characters optically, so the human doesn't have to do it? You still need a human to correct the exceptions. And we still see a lot of machine learning being billed as AI, where you'll have document management, you'll have rating and routing. Those things aren't really generative AI as we're seeing deployed in the most complex cases. So there is some hype there. For us, we use machine learning and starting to play with generative AI to automate the equipment identification, to look at damage, to find spots that a human probably needs to take a look at, but it's really not generative AI yet. We are seeing that. I saw a great demo from a partner of ours, PackSafe, who does data analytics on IoT devices that big pharma, big shippers of critical goods have. They're using what I would call, the generative AI to look at shipment delays and then go out and look at how could I reroute these shipments based on real-time input that they're seeing from the supply chain carriers, and then what else could affect those different routes, geopolitical risk, weather, those kind of things. That's really where I think a lot of the things are going right now in terms of real applied AI. I love the quote. I think his name is John McCarthy, who's kind of considered the father of AI, and I think he coined the term. He said they won't call it AI anymore when it works. It's just software, right? And if you look at the supercomputer we have in our pockets in that tablet, we have image stabilization on the phone, we have automated lighting, we
just call it an iPad.
We just call it a camera on a phone, right? But all of that is applied AI that's evolved over years and years and years. When it works, nobody's going to care, but that is a long evolution that started, probably 50 years ago when they coined the term artificial intelligence. So we're I think in the third or fourth stage of this. Yeah. And it's doing a lot more because computers are getting more powerful and condensed and cheaper, and
there's more data feeding into them so that they can
and you have the means like you saw with DeepSeek a few weeks ago. They completely blew up, whether it's valid or not, the whole pricing model to provide something that would compete to a ChatGPT or OpenAI.
And we're going to see more of that.
Absolutely.
I think. And I'm glad that you sort of walked us through what that looks like, because a lot of people don't realize that AI has been in conversations for a very long time.
Right.
It's just kind of getting the spotlight right now, and I don't think anybody really has it all figured out. And we're going to get there, and we're going to figure it out. What about, you mentioned the word automation while you were talking about AI. What do you think about automation as a buzzword? A lot of people are afraid of that word, I think, because they think that it comes at the expense of jobs.
Yeah.
But I've done some research on technology, and with every new technology, it actually creates 2 to 3 jobs. And so what do you think about automation as a buzzword?
It's progress. It's process, automation primarily, and then it's progress. Listen, if Henry Ford would have asked people what kind of car they wanted before he produced cars, they would have said a faster horse. Right? So again, now we have mechanics versus stable boys.
Right.
It's part of that evolution. We work a lot in the marine terminal and big intermodal space. So there is some robotic automation in there where you have to have control over all the elements so that your facility is safe, it's secure, people are safe, they're not going to get injured, the outside parties. Most places, most container operations that we see really can leverage more of the process automation. And it's not going to eliminate the jobs. It's going to take those jobs out of the unsafe areas and put them inside, whether that's inside of a facility or remotely managing them. You're still going to need people. They're going to need to be retrained. They're going to need to look at managing exceptions and leveraging what the tech is telling them versus being out there with clipboards and hard hats, like has always been done. So that's what I see in terms of real process automation, not robotic automation, coming to the landside supply chain, much like it has to the marine terminals 20 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think you're right. I think it's key. I think we need to get out of, safety is a really big concern in supply chain, in intermodal, for organizations, for people in general.
Yeah.
This industry is built on people,
Yeah.
and we want to make it safer. We want to make it easier. We also want them to be doing exceptions management rather
Yeah.
than some of the tasks that really don't need to be done
Yeah.
manually anymore, right? You mentioned earlier when you mentioned PackSafe about data analytics.
Mm-hmm.
That's another buzzword, right? Everybody has so much data right now. A lot of people don't know what to do with it. Some of them haven't even cleaned it up so that they're using the right words or the same spelling and
Yeah.
whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
What do you think about data analytics as a buzzword, and especially in intermodal? How should we be using it? How should we be not using it?
There's a lot of partners here that are offering those services. You either have to invest in-house if it's a core competency, or you got to have good partners to help you mine the data that's critical to your business operation. The thing that differentiates you and enables your core competencies, you've got to have a firm grasp on that. That talent search is a blood sport. We're huge in computer vision. Anything that people can see physically on a facility, we believe can be improved using a smart camera and some software, and then people to manage those exceptions. But the data scientists to make that work and understand, is this an open door? Is there a corner caster on this container? Is there damage to this chassis? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Is a good step in that. Listen, we're completely founded on the premise that any cargo terminal is going to look vastly different at some point in the future. All of them are going to operate very differently. They're going to be safe. There's going to be fewer people in them. They'll be remote and managing those exceptions. But by default, when you take some of those people out of the risky jobs, it's safer, it's more secure.
Yeah.
You can also, it can be more quiet if you can control how containers are moved around, whether that's with robotic, tractors in the yard or that kind of thing, or the cranes that move the equipment. And that allows you to do more robotic automation so you could densify that facility.
Yeah.
And you can, since you're controlling that, it can be quiet and it can be dark. So we could get logistics facilities closer to your backyard. The NIMBY term, not in my backyard.
Yeah.
Nobody wants a loud container depot or a port operating near them. So it allows, with leveraging some of this technology and process automation and some robotic automation, allows you to make it more safe and secure, densify it, and make it more efficient.
Yeah.
So most of the cargo facilities in North America today, it's truck parking. It's not very efficient.
No.
But that's the way it's always been done, and we want to condense that and make it more efficient, so you're not taking up as much space.
Yeah, I was recently at I won't name names, but I was recently at a rail yard, and they showed us all of the automation. We got in a truck and they drove us all around the yards, and we saw the containers coming on and off, and it's a really big operation.
Yeah.
And I remember from my time in logistics, I was doing a lot of ocean freight, and there's a lot of scheduling that happens, not only internally at the yard to be able to coordinate those containers coming in, getting them off efficiently, putting containers back on, getting those trains on the road. The opposite end of that is also the trucks that are coming through.
Yep.
Making sure that the drivers are vetted coming into the facility, right?
Yep.
Because security is a really big thing.
It is. And making sure they arrive on time.
And I remember scheduling used to be a nightmare. Trying to go and pick up a container, they would be sitting there for 5, 6, 7 hours, and they don't always charge waiting time either.
Yep.
And the client doesn't always want to pay that. And it's unfair to the drivers, and everybody it's kind of like a lose-lose situation when things are not operating at the optimum efficiency that it could. So talk to me about scheduling. How do you help with that? How does automation, maybe AI, help with that as well?
Yeah, it's not really an AI. It's nothing that AI needs to solve or even can solve right now, because there's not even the connectivity between all the players.
Fair.
The marine terminals, the bigger ones in LA, Long Beach, Virginia, South Carolina, other places, they've had appointment systems for a while. Most of them don't charge a penalty when you show up late. So if there's rules not going to be enforced, I think Virginia does, but I don't know about anybody else. If you're not going to enforce that rule, nobody's really going to follow it. So that just throws off the operations inside of a facility. Mm-hmm. So when you say automation and scheduling, we hear that as orchestration. What data can I get from the motor carrier coming to this facility? Is his container ready? Can we send it on a mobile app that he has, that his carrier provides? Can we provide a text update? It looks like you're coming to the facility, but we don't have you scheduled for an appointment, or your container's not even available. So don't come and clog up the works.
Right.
That happens at major marine terminals.
It totally
pretty
does.
well. It's not easy. I've been involved in terminal automation and appointment systems for way too long, 20 years. It's getting better. None of that really happens outside of the marine terminal space. Nobody wants to hear you have to have an appointment, you have to have a reservation.
But you're on your way and we don't have an appointment for you. I mean, that's the worst.
Railroads are great at providing premium service to premium customers. That's probably UPS, FedEx. They come and go when they want, and they figure out the data after the fact. Everybody else is kind of left in the lurch. I think you have to have a streamlined orchestration to get that data into the inland, to the rail ramps, the depots, and the DCs, so that we can better plan what happens before these folks show up. So we're about the orchestration of that and letting the technology put it together, not forcing dispatchers or drivers to enter things, but just taking the data that we have available on behalf of our customers and getting people all in the sandbox to play.
Yeah. Well, and those are direct results for operators, the drivers, things like that. What about the shippers? Like, if we are able to plan better, if we're able to orchestrate better, what does that mean for the end user, the shipper? Can we cut costs? Like,
absolutely.
What does that look like?
Yeah, it's inventory carry. If you're a retailer.
And capital in those containers, holy moly.
Absolutely. I mean, you saw the spikes up with the fear of tariffs. People are wanting to hoard inventory. That costs a lot. That's an added expense. It's not in your capital plan. So you have stuff sitting there in your warehouses, cargo's still coming in, where are you going to put it? So it directly cuts the bottom line of the BCOs, because it can eliminate some of the inventory. They are pretty good at trying to squeeze more out of the supply chain, but it's kind of hard sometimes for the providers to work as quickly as they need to. You've heard the term the Amazon effect, right?
Yeah.
Amazon mandated years ago, I've got to have 15-minute updates. If you're going to move cargo for us, motor carrier, steamship line, whatever,
wow, 15
we got to have
minutes?
15-minute updates, or you're not going to move our goods. So that trickle-down effect is coming to a lot of carriers, a lot of movers of cargo, and it requires you to just do more. So when you have that data, you can share it better with more partners and look to better orchestrate when they arrive and how they arrive.
Collaboration.
Yeah.
What do you think are some of the obstacles that are in the way to make this happen?
A big reason why we've invested in talent and in augmenting a customer's workforce with our talent is because, look at the impact even before COVID. There's not as many people in our, back to our business case, the owners and operators of these facilities, there's not as many people wanting to do these jobs. There's not as many IT and operational execs there, and they're stretched very thin.
Right.
So we want to augment the workforce there and provide them with help, whether it's exception management on a facility, whether that's data analytics, whether that's orchestration of appointment systems or reservation systems. We want to kind of orchestrate that, so that they can do more with the resources that they have. A big thing for us with one of our partner companies, Buckeye Mountain, hardware management. All of this tech that's going into these facilities, namely, I'll use the Class 1 railroads, who are a big Buckeye Mountain customer. They manage hundreds of thousands of devices on these facilities. New devices in the cabs of their trucks or in their cranes or handhelds walking around. All of those stuff, all that stuff has to be configured, installed with the right software. It's got to be prepared for a user like you to pick it up, get trained, put it in your truck, put it in your crane, and go out and use it. That entire cradle to grave process is a huge managed service that Buckeye Mountain is doing throughout the intermodal supply chain, managing hundreds of thousands of devices. Are they working? Are they not? Do they need to be repaired? How do we swap them out? And that takes some of the responsibilities, not the responsibilities, but the worry off of the end customers who operate a network of terminals. I want to deploy technology, but I need some help to manage that process.
Yeah.
So that's a real value add service that they're providing that, we see a lot of folks benefiting from.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you about driving improvement, like what's going to drive improvement. And when you brought up Buckeye Mountain, I go back to the conversation that I had with them on the podcast, and the word that came to my mind is innovation.
Yeah.
And he was telling me a story about how a facility went down. I can't remember where it was. I don't know if it was an airport or something like that. A facility went down. Mm-hmm. And obviously a facility like that cannot go down, right? People need their cargo, things needs to go in and out. And he was saying that within a matter of, I don't even think 24 hours, they had patchworked some stuff together through solar panels, et cetera, to get that facility back up and running within 24 hours, which traditionally I think would have taken 2 to 3 weeks, which nobody can afford today with the capital that it costs to have inventory sitting there and not being able to move. Every time something isn't moving, it's costing everybody money. It's costing consumers money, it's costing shippers money, it's costing business and organizations and everybody in between. Yeah. And so I wanted to ask you about that, but I kind of answered my own question with the innovation piece. And it's another reason why I like working with Lynxis. Because what you're thinking about and how you're thinking about the industry and moving it forward is all around innovation. People, like you said earlier, but innovation. Yep. How do we do things better? How do we do them differently? How do we collaborate? How do we share data?
Yeah. The example you gave from Buckeye Mountain was an intermodal facility in Houston. I think this was an impact of an ice storm or a snowstorm or something that hit the state of Texas.
Yes, I remember that now.
And it knocked out their Wi-Fi coverage, their Wi-Fi system in the facility, right? Buckeye's got these unbelievably innovative, autonomous Wi-Fi systems that, again, they don't require power, and it's a point-to-point mesh network which connects device to device, and it was going to take, I think, about $700,000 to replace the Wi-Fi system in 3 months. That means the operation.
So it was 3 months. I was totally wrong. I said 2 to 3 weeks.
That means the operation would have had to just go on pen and paper, which is very hard to do given the executional systems in play there.
And most people don't know how to do that.
Yeah, right. It's specialized. Putting Wi-Fi, these guys are experts at Wi-Fi for cargo terminals, whether it's tall grounded stacks or just an ever-changing, wheeled parking scenario. So they deploy their rapid deploy systems there in a matter of 3 or 4 days at about half the price of what it would take in the traditional vendor to do that, because they didn't have to tie into the power grid to run fiber optics to the light poles. The stuff goes out, it's autonomous, it works, and it's guaranteed coverage so that the operation can continue. That was a huge tipping point, I think, for the growth of Buckeye and proving these systems and how quickly they can be implemented.
But that's the mindset that we need in the industry right now, right? That is the way that we need to be able to think about how to solve a problem. And let's face it, we're all in this industry because we are problem solvers.
Yeah.
Right? So we've got some of the brightest minds in the industry with, companies like yours and Buckeye Mountain thinking this way, even PackSafe, right? Thinking this way, talking about it differently. And that's what's going to drive the industry forward. So I want to ask you about the future, kind of. What do you want to be talking about this time next year? Like, what do you see sort of happening between now and maybe the same time in 2026?
Use cases, reference stories. We've talked a lot about what we want to do with technology, what we want to do with AI, and again, that's some of the hype. We don't really sell on anything other than the value it's going to bring. Yeah. And that comes from customers providing references to other new prospects on the value it's provided them. So, I want to see actual use cases where you started with a problem, this problem was solved, and this was the net result. This is a tangible ROI. the project started here. It was expected to take this long, cost this much. It was implemented, and then it's sustained for that long. So you're still adding value years and years after the fact. We like to look, and we sit down with customers. What does success look like in 1 year, 2 years, and 5 years? Because we want to be that long-term partner, and we want to understand the vision that they have. All of that stems from our past results. What have you done for me lately? I want to see case studies of proven results, not just conjecture and hype.
Yeah. Well, and speak the same language, because success to you versus success to the client can mean a variety of different things, and you want to make sure that you're on the same page and building to the same things.
We want to enable anybody. Listen, it's the guy with a dirt lot in industrial space. He sees that people are making money with container storage. We want to enable him. We want to tech enable him to do that. To whether it's container storage, whether it's a big distribution center, we want to kind of democratize his technology so that we can get more nodes of the supply chain working efficiently. And yes, we love the big marine terminals and big rail operators, but if we don't have better integration of these landside depots and DCs, we're missing the point, because it's a chain, and the weakest link is going to determine how efficient that chain is.
Absolutely. I mean, that's why it's called supply chain, right? Well, that was fascinating, and I can't wait to be back here next year to talk about those case studies, to talk about tangible results, to talk about, how the industry has changed, how intermodal has changed over the year. Now, if you had a guess at today's big question, at the top of the show, I asked you, in the US alone, how many container moves happen each year? You got a guess?
23 million.
It's about 100 million.
Wow.
You were a little low on that one, but that's okay, I'll take it. Handled by over 500,000 truck drivers and 12,000 trucking companies.
I was way off.
Those are some big numbers, and that is what we're looking to do. We're looking to collaborate, make everyone's life easier, right?
Yep.
And make supply chain way more efficient. So if you want to learn more about Lynxis, head over to lynxis.com. Alan, thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Always a pleasure, Sarah. Love what you're doing.
Great. Bye, everyone.